Madan Sabnavis is now with us, Chief Economist at Bank of Baroda. Madan, thanks for taking out time for us. Can you just talk to us about a prediction of a normal rainfall coming in? What does it mean for estimates?
See, I think the prediction of a normal monsoon is probably a necessary condition for us to have a regular kharif harvest. It is not really a sufficient condition. The reason I say this is that even if you go by what the IMD says compared to what SkyMet has projected, we also need to see about the arrival of the monsoon, the departure of the monsoon, the spread of the monsoon. I think that is probably more important, and especially in the rain shadow areas, because we have quite a few crops in the kharif category of oil seeds and pulses which come in the rain shadow area. They need to be they need to get enough rainfall. So the preliminary estimate does indicate that things would be normal, but we will have to wait and see as to whether the monsoon really begins on time, because that's when the farmers really decide on their cropping pattern. Any delay, like what we have seen in the last few years, can lead to shifting of your crops, especially from things like rice to things like pulses. So that would probably be a more important thing. But I think to begin with, at this point of time in the month of April, I think it's good enough news. Though, as I said earlier, that SkyMet has a different kind of view. And the fact that an El Nino seems to be quite probable this particular year, I would still be a bit cautious while interpreting the IMD's forecasts.
Okay, so still a bit circumspect and likely and correctly so, perhaps because of the El Nino impact that you talked about, and we have been fairly lucky for the last 3 to 4 years, right, Madan? But what does this do to your food inflation expectations? Because we heard the RBI governor very recently wherein they downgraded the inflation expectation just by a minute number of around 10 basis points. Do you think we have peaked out when it comes to inflation?
No, actually, we can't be sure about it, because I think we've had already the extreme weather conditions in the months of March and probably also a bit of April, which could be affecting the Rabi crop, especially of wheat. And while the government has maintained that the wheat crop would be normal, if you talk to market sources, they feel that it could be a shortfall because there has been damage, first on account of excessive rain and then on account of heat. So I think that is something which is going to play at the background. And then going forward, depending upon how the monsoon really fares, I think food prices are the ones which are going to be under pressure. So unlike last year, where I think we saw core inflation being the major problem for us, with that being sticky in the region of around 6.5%. This time around, it could be food prices which could be throwing up a surprise, given the fact that, again, as I mentioned earlier, that El Nino is a greater probability this year, and it could be a severe one. So depending upon how the monsoon really fares, I think we would get a clearer picture on food prices. But food prices definitely would be a problem, especially in the area of pulses as well as oil seeds, besides wheat, which is more of a Rabi phenomenon.
Right. Madan, just, before we wrap, just wanted to understand, what do you make of, what RBI did last week, and considering that the monsoon predictions are normal, what does it mean for inflation?
So as far as the RBI is concerned, I think they had gone on the basis of a normal monsoon, which means that the inflation number of 5.3% was slightly upgraded to 5.2%, meaning thereby that things are going to be very satisfactory, which is, I think, a reasonable assumption to make at this point of time. But I think going ahead, before there is any further decision taken on interest rates, I think it will be necessary to see as to how the monsoon fares, because that could throw light about how food inflation, because that could be the joker in the pack, and that's something which could be upsetting the calculations. So as of now, I think it's a fairly reasonable kind of an assumption to make. But I think the red flag has already been put up by the RBI. And from the market perspective, I think if we do expect inflation numbers to move down in the next couple of months, but that should not be taken to be a signal that the repo rate is going to be lowered anytime soon. Definitely, I think it will be only after September, October that a view could be taken on inflation as well as on interest rates.
All right, Madan, thanks so much for taking out time for us.